Good morning, guys, from my side of the globe. You are with the Anyone Can Playwrite podcast show, and Playwright is Playwrite. And yes, I did used to be a high school cheerleader and on dance team. But yes, you are with the Anyone Can Playwrite podcast show, and I am your host, R.K. Lemons Weber, and we are talking about adult play therapy today, guys. We are coming from this beautiful and amazing book right here, the Adult Play Therapy Devotional, a 60-day soul cleansing devotional and journal. This book was written by me, R.K. Lemons Weber. Some of you also know me as Sacred Para of the Sacred Para Playland. If you need to find this book and you're having issues finding R.K.Lemons with 2 M's, Weber with 1 B, if you're having a little bit of an issue finding R.K. Lemons Weber, you can always look for Sacred Para, and you will also find it on Amazon. I also have this book available in the format of ebook, hardback, and you can DM me and we'll do a money exchange, and I will sign, autograph, send you a special message in your book and send it off to you so you can have your own personal copy. Now, guys, we are on day 13. Yes, day 13. We have been committing ourselves to cleansing our souls, detoxifying ourselves so that our play can be done in a fun way. And we can really make that committed time for our play. All right? Day 13. Plus, on top of that, I want to add this in. I find that whenever I'm purging of my inner self, my inner conscious, my unconscious, when I'm really tapping into it and cleansing of my unconscious and doing some soul searching and purging, releasing the things that are toxic to me, I find that I get better creative ideas. Yeah, like things that I may have a writer's block on, or even during like my fun time, my story time building, and working with my children. I may have an obstacle as far as how to reach one of my kids. And once when I sit down with myself and take that time to detox, to allow myself to be cleansed, I'm telling you, it makes a difference, because then I come back and an idea hits me, and it can be something very, very simple, but just pushes the project forward that I'm working on. So it can be a personal project, a creative project. It can be something that I'm doing with my children. It can be something that I'm discussing with my husband. It can be something that we need to do as a household. And we may feel stuck on it, but when I, get involved into doing some soul searching and cleansing and tapping into what's going on in my unconscious, I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference just as far as allowing the ideas to come. Anything that was blocked becomes unblocked, and I'm able to hear from God better on what He wants my next moves to be. So I'm telling you, this is so worth it. It is so worth it in order to do this seeking, do this finding. Ask and the door shall be opened unto you. Ask, knock, and seek, right? And that's what we're doing. All right, guys. Day 13. You have the choice if you choose to engage in conversation with certain individuals and the extent of engagement with individuals. I'll say it one more time. You have the choice if you choose to engage in conversation with certain individuals and the extent of engagement with individuals. All right, we're going to get into our journal prompt. All right, journal prompt for today. Create a statement that you will say when these subjects are brought up. This is your strategic statement of disengagement. Create a statement that you will say when these subjects are brought up. This is your strategic statement of disengagement. This is so important not to get you to become robotic or to just have something that you say as a standard. But one of the things that I learned when I worked in customer service was I had to have a kind of a blanket statement. And this is just something that you do in marketing as well. My husband and I have talked about it. You'll have a statement that you say to potential clients. And instead of trying to tailor your statement for each client, especially when you've never met them, you say one blanket statement, one marketing statement to kind of grab their attention and tie them in. And hopefully, it works and you go from there. Or if you're in customer service and you have to, like I had to talk to people and ask them, like, how's your refrigerator? And I mean, it sounds very weird, but I was, doing surveys. And so I would ask them, you just purchased this. What is your review on it? And this is, of course, before we had the, reviews that are done online. So we would have to gather this information on the phone, guys. This is old school. And I would just call and have a statement that was already written down on the paper. And I would ask each person that I had contact with the same question. And that's what you're going to do right here. You're going to create a statement that feels personal for you. And then whenever someone brings up a topic that was from yesterday that you would have wrote down, that you said, these topics make me feel uncomfortable. So when those topics come up, what do you say in response? Is your statement something like, oh, well, I think we need to talk about that later. I'll give you an example briefly. My dad, when he was on this side of the earth, before he transcended, one of the things that he would always say is, well, that's a conversation for another day. Now, you've probably heard me say that, and that honestly, literally comes from him. He used to say it all the time, and at times it used to make me mad because I was like, we got to talk about this right now. But he was a man that was very solid on his stance. And if it was a topic that he did not want to talk about, he didn't go into it. I think I only one time got him to talk about something that he was not really willing to talk about. And that was probably the only time. Any other time that my dad was like, that's another subject for another day, he meant it and he stood by it. And if you did not respect that, then he would, he used to get off the phone. Or he'd be like, I have to leave. He knew how to set healthy boundaries for himself. And even if those healthy boundaries seemed in conflict with what my desires were, my personal wants and desires were, or someone else's personal wants and desires, he knew he had to maintain his own sanity. And that's what we have to do right here. You have to maintain your own sanity. So what statement helps you do that? With my dad, his was, that's another subject for another day. For someone else, it may be, let's put a pin in it. Which means we're going to put a marker right here and come back to this conversation on a different day. For you, it may be just, I'm not ready to talk about that right now. I'm not ready to talk about that right now. And one of the things that I learned from my experience with my dad, people can't force you to talk. He made it very clear to me, I don't care who was trying to pressure him into a conversation. It could have been his mom. It could have been his dad. It could have been his brother. Like I said, me, it didn't matter. He let you know that is another conversation for another day. And that was it. And some people were in agreement and some people were not. And he had to, shoulder the burden of disappointing or infuriating people while still keeping up his boundaries. And I say that because when you say this statement to people, some people are still going to try to pressure you. Some people are still going to try to press on your boundary, on your wall. They're going to try their best to enter in. They're going to try their best to get you to talk about the subject. But I encourage you to be strong-willed like my dad was, and to know thyself, and to know what subjects that you're ready to talk about, what topics that you're ready to talk about, and what subject matters you're not ready to talk about, and what topics you're not ready to talk about. And be willing to say, I'm not ready to talk about that. This is another subject for another day. That's a conversation for another day. We'll have that conversation on another day. You have to be willing to do that. And you have to be willing to disappoint people. But know that your sanity, your emotional well-being, your physical well-being, your creativity is worth it. And that's one of the things that in my dad's passing and me reflecting on who he was as an individual, as well as who he was to me, that's what that's one of the things that I take for myself, is knowing that my emotional, mental, spiritual, creative well-being is so much more important than the people who may feel offended because I won't go into certain subject matters and topics and conversations just because they're ready to talk about it. If I'm not ready to talk about it, I don't have to feel pressured to talk about it. And that's one of the things that you need to know about yourself. And there may be some subjects that you can't talk to a person about because that's not who you need to be having the conversation with. It could be a childhood trauma and you're like, I'm not ready to talk to you about it. But maybe with a psychologist, a counselor, your spouse, your partner, you're able to release and talk freely and not feel judged, feel understood, be able to feel comforted, and be able to, feel filled up. So sometimes it's not just a subject that you can't talk about. It may be the person who's wanting to pull it from you. Maybe their desires are negative, or maybe they're not willing to fill your cup up. They just want all the details. They want to know what happened and how it happened and compare notes and talk about what happened to them when they were kids. But they don't fill your cup up. They're not willing to say, I'm sorry that this happened to you. They're not willing to say, well, how can I help you in what happened to you? They just want to know what happened for their own self. But it's not a matter of filling your cup back up. It's a matter of taking from your cup and then them departing and your cup feeling empty. Whereas going to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor, going to your spouse, your partner, your mate, you feel yourself empty because you're releasing what's in you. And when you give the details and you talk about what hurt or whatever the situation may be, it could even be a first love and that didn't go the way that you thought that it would. And that hurt is still there. But the person that you talk to is so solid in your life. And you have that sacred, intimate relationship to where when you talk to them, they fill your cup back up. So what poured out of you that was nasty, gunky, and icky, and toxic, poisonous, what came out, that person is able to give you some good filtered water and, that alkaline water, and keep you all nice and healthy and fill you up with the love and the compassion that you need to continue to move forward. And then you can fill up their cup as well. That's who you want to be able to release to. So there are some subjects that are just you don't want to talk about. But you also have to consider the factor being that eventually I need to talk about these things. I don't want to just keep them bottled up inside of me, because that's not good. But who do I talk to? And that's when you look at your list with your individuals that are on your sacred intimate circle list. And that's who you talk to about those subjects, especially if the subject gets brought up by an individual that may trigger you, or, that conversation with them will be triggering. And you use your statement and you say, I'm not ready to have that conversation right now, or that's a conversation for another day. But now the subject's been brought up, and it's now coming from your unconscious to your conscious, and you're feeling some anxiety and probably some depression maybe, and how do I handle this? Because now it's been brought up and I'm kind of flooded with the memories of it. That's the time when you go to the intimate circle, the sacred circle, and you talk to those individuals and say, this subject matter was brought up by person X, and it made me feel really uncomfortable, and it brought back all kinds of details that I hadn't even thought about, and I'm just kind of bummed right now. What do I do? Or, I just need someone to listen to me because I've never talked about it. And that person would be willing to listen. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you need someone that can give you advice. And sometimes you just need someone who can listen. And them listening to you can just be that thing that fills up your cup, right? And then if it's something where you need to receive advice or receive encouragement or get a hug, you'll be able to receive that, and you'll feel the love from that, and you'll feel the warmth from that. And it makes a huge difference. And one of the greatest things of it is because you talked about that subject matter, because you were ready to talk about it. You were ready to talk about it. By you being ready to talk about it, what you're going to find, oh my God, is that you feel more free in that area. And guess what? We're talking about double play therapy. Now, because you feel more free in that area, that's an area that's now open for creative suggestion. That area is now available for creative ideas and a creative exploration and explosion. And you didn't even know it, because at first that area was occupied by trauma. But now that it's empty and your cup's been filled with love, and Jesus has come in and filled it, and you feel much more better. You're like, oh my God. I'm just saying, for me, that's how I feel when Jesus comes in and he uses somebody in my life and fills my cup. It makes me have peace of mind, and I'm no longer struggling the same like I was with that trauma. I get a creative burst. And I'm like ready to do a diorama. I'm ready to take some pictures. I'm ready to write that book. I'm ready to publish that book. I'm ready to help my kids in their creative endeavors. I'm ready to, what do you need me to do, husband? I got your back on it. Whereas at first I may have been bogged down by a weight that I didn't even know I was carrying. I knew it was in my backpack, my emotional backpack. Could feel the weight. But now that it's been released and I was able to talk to the proper person that I needed to, that's in my sacred intimate circle, I can sit upright. My backpack is lighter, right? And that's how we want to do this. We need to unpack what's inside our emotional backpack. This is like a Dora backpack. Backpack, backpack. Remember that? Backpack, backpack. On the backpack loaded up with, yeah. All right, so what's in your emotional backpack, guys? And sometimes it takes the person that may trigger us to bring up the conversation so that we'll know what's still inside that backpack. But that may not be the person we need to talk to. So what's going to be your statement? What's going to be your go-to statement that allows there to still be peace? Because when my dad said it to me, and he was just like, that's a conversation for another day. He never did say it nasty. He wasn't rude. He didn't call me out no names. He respected me. Now, the feeling I got from it may have felt like, well, I'm ready to talk about it right now, and you should be too. But that was because I was dealing with emotional immaturity, right? And I felt that I should, get this information because I want it. And my thing too was always, and I would share this with them, I was like, but we're not always going to be here. One day, all of us end up perishing. We need to have this conversation now. But I'm telling you, no matter what tactic I call myself using, this very wise man who was very stern on his self-respect and self-worth, and understood that, and understood what was healthy for him, he still stood by it and was like, that's a conversation for another day. And he stood by that. And that's what we have to do. That no matter what tactics that the person brings up, and I believe my dad truly did love me and still does love me. But he knew that I was not the person to have those conversations with, either because of where my emotional state was, or because he just knew. He knew it wasn't the proper time. He just knew. And even with the love that he has for me, I may not have been in his sacred, intimate circle. Maybe I was not that person at that time. Just honestly speaking, there's a huge difference in age between us. Maybe I wasn't that person at that time that could have filled up his emotional cup, or his mental cup, or his spiritual cup. I wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have just been me pulling and extracting information. But then who would have poured back into him? And he knew that. So I now look back and I say, thank you, Dad. Thank you for understanding that I was not able to handle the information that would have been given. And even if I could have, who would have been there for him? So you have to consider that. And this is a little bit longer of a conversation, but I feel like this is an anointed conversation. This is an on time, conversation to be able to have right now. Because there is going to be opposition when you say your statement. And people are going to want to talk when you're not wanting to talk. And I feel that it's important to encourage you and to empower you, to let you know that once when you start using the personalized statement that you create, that there are going to be individuals that are not going to be happy with it. And you still have to be able to stand firm. So guys, I'm signing out. I thank you so much. Peace, love, happiness, joy. I want you guys to have an amazing day today. It's a Monday. It's not another manic Monday. This is a manifestation Monday. This is a miracle Monday. Let's put some positives on what Monday is for us so we can be able to attract great and positive things, right? Happening and going our way this day. I will be with you guys again tomorrow. Thank you so much for having me on this journey with you and for being on this journey with me. Bye, you guys.